Thank you. I'm a retired General Officer. I require special handling by commissioned officers, and lieutenant rank is the perfect rank for me to work with, so bear with me. Good morning. It is a privilege to present to you today. I also have the privilege of serving as Executive Director for the Arctic Domain Awareness Center. ADAC is one of a constellation of centers of excellence from the Office of University programs at DHS, U.S. Department of Homeland Security, Science and Technology. Is that better? Okay, thank you. ADAC is hubbed at the University of Alaska, split between University of Alaska Anchorage and University of Alaska Fairbanks. We, of course, have an array of research that's conducted via fellow universities, industry, and other research entities. I will quickly review some reflections how we in ADAC are trying to respond to the needs of the Arctic operator as we seek to provide solutions that may help advance awareness and improve mission effectiveness for one of the most challenging regions that maritime operators face on our planet. So we in ADAC seek to accomplish an array of science and technology that corresponds to increasing understanding of the physical environment of the Arctic. Investigate and conduct specific research needs that are driven by the Coast Guard operator. Accordingly, we in ADAC are oriented to understand the mission and requirement in order to conduct the most relevant research to support the operator. We also want operators to drive the research agenda. We seek to understand the concerns of Coast Guard operators at the headquarters, at the area, specifically in Pacific and Atlantic areas, and at the district level, specifically District 17, and then work with science, technology, Office of University programs to develop and then conduct operational focus research. And then, of course, we also conduct dedicated forums where we get below the topical level of ideas with operators and help us drive the research agenda. We seek to conduct both fundamental and applied research. While we're oriented towards applied research, we submit there needs to be a strong aspects of fundamental research as both are needed in the portfolio. We also believe it's important to think both in near-term and longer-term views on what the Arctic operator will need. And certainly we understand that, and we look in the near term, how does that drive the longer term perspective? We seek to understand the Arctic as presenting itself and research ways to reduce risk to the operator. Ultimately, our researchers need to investigate, develop, refine, deliver, and transition capabilities that can be used by the operator. This is not easy stuff, but it is the expected outcome of our sponsoring agency at DHS S&T OUP. In ADAC, we understand the principal focus of the U.S. Coast Guard is about safety and security, preparedness, and response in the Arctic maritime domain. Accordingly, this focus is oriented to the Coast Guard prosecuting missions in humanitarian assistance, search and rescue, waterways management, disaster response, major response operations. This includes things such as coping with a disabled cruise vessel, and law enforcement activities such as illicit trafficking, illicit resource extraction, such as illegal fishing or illegal taking of marine mammals. These mission sets, coupled with a very difficult environment, vast distances, and limited response forces, provide a daunting challenge that day-to-day is a problem enough, but then when you couple it with some of the more severe conditions that the Arctic can deliver, it results in both the operational force and the command echelons facing staggering levels of risk. Therefore, any means can be used to reduce these risks by leveraging science and technology makes sense because it can make the difference between safe mission accomplishment or the loss of life. As stated earlier in the conference, the diminishing ice environment in the Arctic is a key enabler to human activity, increased human activity across the Arctic maritime domain. Whereas sea ice once served as an effective barrier to people operating substantially across the Arctic for essentially nearly all of recorded human history, the continued seasonal decrease in overall volume of sea ice is opening up many opportunities for such as destination tourism, maritime shipping, and then of course resource extraction, just as Larry mentioned in his previous discussions. Whereas many of the commercial activities, those folks doing commercial activities understand the concept of being able to provide for themselves and ultimately help their own response, at the end of the day, those costs are fairly substantial and sometimes serve to be an inhibitor, specifically when you look at folks that are not there routinely, but perhaps the occasional visitor to the Arctic. In this aspect, some of those costs then are unwittingly or unknowingly often transferred to the Coast Guard to have to pick up the slack or deal with the consequences when bad things happen. A diminishing ice environment also means these decreasing barriers also provide an opportunity for illegal activities. And certainly the remoteness of the Arctic provides, quote, the unlocked, unopened back door to the approaches to national borders in the Arctic region. This is, of course, not a comprehensive list, but does provide a fairly decent sampling of many areas of concern of the Coast Guard being able to prosecute an array of missions in the Arctic region. Many of these operator concerns can be linked to the Coast Guard Arctic Strategy or the Arctic Strategy implementation plans as well. Again, not a comprehensive list, but get you something to start with. As someone who is relatively new to the Arctic research community, as a former Air Force guy, it is remarkable from my vantage point to see the genuine level of participation and collaboration amongst the community of Arctic researchers. To me, this number of committed people and essentially bringing their own resources to the table to think through the challenging problems is an innovative way to find low-cost solutions, which, of course, we are all mindful of the cost aspects in the Arctic. As somewhat of an economy of force theater, if you think of it as context, compared to perhaps some of the things that are more commensurate with pressing problems in lower latitudes. And accordingly, and no doubt this is fairly obvious, solutions to problems provided by the Coast Guard and other operators can best be addressed by continued partnering and collaborating. And teaming, of course, will provide better solutions. As a small research enterprise, we in ADAC are striving to help. And ultimately, we've offered a few of the snapshots of view of our current research and some previous research for the next course of minutes, because these are our contributions supporting the Coast Guard, the Arctic operator, and of course, also to support the public good. These are a couple examples of the next few moments. One, of course, is an Arctic oil spill modeling project where partners with Texas A&M University and our colleagues at University of Alaska Anchorage and understanding what's happening from the seabed all the way to the surface, interaction, how oil not only comes from the seabed up, but then how it interacts with the sea ice. And our products in this aspect go into NOAA's general plan to go into NOAA's general modeling environment. We have a long-range autonomous underwater vehicle that's being conducted in partnership with Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution, as well as Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute, to provide essentially a TETHIS platform that can go up to 600 kilometers under sea ice to be able to do 3D mapping of essentially an oil spill under ice, and being able to be handled without provided no special handling equipment. Our high-resolution modeling of sea ice currents leverages satellite information, essentially get to a 4-kilometer resolution pan-Arctic, and then much higher resolution routinely at 2 kilometers, and then even more so increased levels of precision as you get to a more focused region. And this is a product that we've been able to get into our colleagues at NOAA's Office of Response and Restoration in their Arctic IRMA, their Environmental Response Management Application product. A new project we hope to have underway by the end of the month is leveraging ship data to help essentially create a set of potential surveying, if you will, of areas for prosecuting what's most rational for near coastal areas in bathymetry. A big problem, as we mentioned multiple times through this conference. Another project we hope to get underway at the end of the month here is seeking to create a series of products that are enabling the decision maker and leveraging weather forecast and crisis response to really help the decision maker cue a risk managed set of decisions in order to send forces really more wittingly equipped to deal with the crisis unseen, and ultimately for both the operational force and the command echelons at Sector Anchorage and District 17. We're about 10 months underway into an ice condition index product that's really trying to leverage weather forecasts, lake ice conditions, and then vessel classifications on the Great Lakes regions to really help both U.S. Coastal District 9 at Cleveland, Ohio, as well as Great Lakes mariners to be more witting in dealing with their shipping decisions made for routes of steam in the Great Lakes region in the winter months. We're about 3 years underway in trying to leverage what local citizens are doing, or can see and do and help contribute to appropriate decision making at both the Sector Anchorage and also in District 17 on seeing something, saying something, and sending something, and what gets sent is actually useful to those folks standing the watch on those respective Coast Guard headquarters or Coast Guard operational entities. In this context here, we're seeking to try to figure out what does right look like for creating a community-based observer network that's really of service to provide it to the Coast Guard, and where citizen science can actually help, if you will, inform those folks charged with the Arctic operational missions. We're also trying to conclude a project, or getting a project underway, getting the last of the details pulled together for essentially conducting a satellite-derived bathymetry project on Arctic Alaska, but specifically looking at the near coastal areas and finding what does right look like based on Arctic shipping and really Alaska coastal shipping in those regions. We are actually now also underway preparing a request for proposal to elicit really solutions to address Coast Guard operational needs in Arctic information fusion. This is separate and distinct from our prior works effort in Arctic information fusion capability. And ultimately, we have this project, we have an RFP queued up and ready to go, just waiting the research questions coming in from Coast Guard. We're hopefully maybe as early as today, hoping to get a decision made by Headquarters Coast Guard in a separate basic ordering agreement project that coming to us, where we partner our colleagues at University of Alaska's Alaska Satellite Facility with Coast Guard Research and Development Center to really advance the ball in Arctic communications focused on those needs that help the Coast Guard, as the Commandant mentioned yesterday. These are a couple of recently concluded projects. One, of course, in integrated ice hazards, where essentially we created algorithms that were focused on both shore and ship-based radars to really detect the movement of sea ice. This project is now concluded. We're seeking a commercial application with the shipping industry. We've also just concluded a low-cost sensor project for essentially security detection. We're now probably getting ready to publish the results of this and potentially seek an alternative sponsorship for this work. We've just completed 3 years of work in developing courseware for mariners, both watchstanders, first mates, and captains, to be compliant with the IMO Polar Code. The last project was really for first mates and captains as both courseware and simulation materials to be actually used by the shipping industry and also the mariner academies. And right now we're getting ready to bundle that packaged work and send it to the Coast Guard Office of Navigation for certification. Some prior concluded work for us is both using chemical isotopes to detect oil and sea ice formation, and also smart camera research, and these are going into various respective trade journals in those communities over the course this next year is something we intend to get published. Workshops, of course, are the big deal for us. This is where the operators really tell us what matters to them, and again, at granular levels. We have essentially two forms. One, an Arctic Incident of National Significance workshop, is a near-term venue. The other one is an Arctic medium and long-term environment workshop, is really a longer-term aspect. We've done one workshop on ions, if you call it simple terms, that was focused on a cruise ship disaster in the Arctic regions. We're getting ready to do another one this coming fall. It's going to be an oil spill-focused event. And we're actually happy to announce this Arctic Ions in the fall oil spill event is actually going to be sequential heel to toe with the Office of Naval Research's International Collaborative Exchange for Polar Policy Research, or ICE paper. We're going to conduct this last full week in October in the University of Alaska Anchorage. Our Arctic medium long-term environment workshop is really, we just concluded one in May that was focused on Arctic in the 2030 timeframe. That was actually partner of the colleagues at U.S. Coast Guard Deputy Commandant for Operations Future Concepts, or the Evergreen team. One of the cool things about a university enterprise is the fact that we have students and a remarkable ability to tap into this invaluable resource. To no one's surprise, of course, these are folks that really can get some innovation to us, and we're leveraging these students while also helping prepare them to be part of the Homeland Security enterprise. So, in sum, this slide simply serves as a recap. Perhaps we can label as truth self-evident. In sum, where the challenges are focused in the Arctic, really where we can bring science technology to bear to reduce the risk for the Arctic operator, and the missions that we just described make sense. Smart investments in this area, but also smart partnerships. And ultimately for us in ADAC, letting the operational community drive the research agenda kind of makes sense, and we're honored to be a part of that. ultimately, at the end of the day, we know we're one part of this overall research enterprise. The more we can connect with others out there that are doing like and similar work, the better chance we can have to reduce wasted effort and maximize the synergy of partnerships. So those are what I want to offer to you. I'll take whatever moments Paulo will give me. I can now take a breath and then see what questions you might have.
Actually, I'd like first to take care of an online question, and if there's a minute or so left, then we take a...
The free fire zone. You go ahead and give me what you got.
All right, let me see. Why do the stakeholders come into play during phase 3? They should be included beginning in phase 1. The components in phase 1 impact the people of the Arctic.
We're going to need the rest of the question here. If you're missing something here, which project are we talking about?
You ask.
What I can do is I'm going to take that for the record. If I can get, in the interest of time, the other questions I can answer quickly.
I have a question about your upcoming project regarding vessel tracking data.
Okay.
If I understand correctly, you're planning to base bathymetry charting needs based on where the vessels are going, right?
Right, where vessel traffic is high, so we're trying to essentially use some efficiency here because satellite-derived bathymetry is expensive. So we're trying to say where does it make most sense based on where the traffic is highest. And through a community approach of where people are doing the shipping industry, asking them, okay, where are you going? We can leverage AIS data. You know, Ed Page is here, and he's a partner in this endeavor. So his AIS data gives us kind of a cue, but then also asking where others are at, making sure that we got the rational approach. And when we do SDB, it's oriented to where the needs are highest and potentially the risks are greatest.
I agree. What I would maybe suggest, though, is that considering that ships will not go where there is no adequate charting, maybe going beyond just tracking data and going to the stakeholders directly and see where would you go if there were some good charting. That would be a good way.
This is a good question, a good reflection. And in this case here, I know adventure tourism is a big driver. And, you know, as a potential customer of adventure tourism, I want to go where it's really interesting. I can get the best photo, right? Well, sometimes the best photos where the risks are really, really dangerous and I get stuck on a rock. And being stuck on a rock when it's flat, calm, no big deal. But that same rock sticking is a big deal when you get 30-foot seas come up out of nowhere with a 40-knot wind. So to us, knowing where they're interested in going certainly matters. Ultimately, in the day, we'll be driven by the decisions made by our project champion, Headquarters Coast Guard, and saying, okay, this looks about right. We've got the input from the customer community. Then ultimately, they will help give us our left and right limits and working with them to make sure we got the right application to meet their needs. But that's a very good point.
Thank you, and we're going to stop here.
I've been given the hook.
Yeah.
Well, give me my glass wipe thing and
Thanks
I get off
again.
the stage.
Oh, you're right.
Because I use them.